Summer is finally over and September is officially here. So y'all already know what that means. It's cuffing season. But no, seriously, there's a bunch of you guys out here that, listen, you may not want to date anymore. You may be in the camp of, you don't like women. Frankly, I don't really cater to you guys that much, but you might be in the other group. You might actually want to be in a relationship or whatever the case may be. But the reality is, you can't get a girl. So this video, I'm going to talk about how to survive male loneliness. I'll make another video talking about how to finally get a girlfriend and stuff like that, but this video will be explicitly for how to survive male loneliness. So let's talk about male loneliness. Firstly, I feel like male loneliness is a lot different than female loneliness, primarily because when you're alone or you feel lonely as a male, there is literally no one to support you. Frankly, no one gives a and I think that's for good measure, right? I can't imagine living in a world where I depend on so many people to make me feel good or make me feel like I have some sort of value. So when I think about all the moments I've been alone and, I've gone through my own trials and been able to come out of it successfully, granted that might be some survivorship bias, I think the success of that transformation is largely part due to the fact that I just had the understanding that no one was going to come help me. I mean, listen, as a male, that's something we all have to realize. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I think it's fortunate, people aren't going to come to save us because that's not their job. And quite frankly, I mean, we could talk about this just from a human perspective. Saving people isn't really anyone's job, but more so than not, you'll find that women get a lot of help in that department as opposed to men, which, again, is neither here nor there. It's just a fact of life. Male loneliness is like being in solitary confinement and you didn't do anything to end up in solitary confinement, and yet no one gives a fuck. I think this is even more telling when you have people in relationships or, you might be that individual who's going through town and seeing people coupled up and things of that nature, and your first inclination is to get a little jealous or a little short-sighted, right? You start seeing all these people in relationships, you're wondering why you're not in one, you're feeling lonely, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, gentlemen, that's a moot point, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, just looking at relationship statistics alone, most of them don't last anyway. We all know this is a cycle of life. There's nothing shocking about that news. But here's what I would say. More people are likely to get in short-term relationships during cuffing season than actually stick with someone they'd want to be with for the long term. What does all this mean? In other words, this means that people are generally just using people to occupy time and space during these winter months. So technically speaking, I know it's easy for you to be upset that you may not be in a relationship or whatever the case may be, but technically speaking, you should be a little excited about this because at the very least, you're not getting used, right? Now, moreover, aside from all that, the ultimate question still remains, well, how do we get over our loneliness during cuffing season, or just how do we get over our loneliness in general? And here I present to you, ladies and gentlemen, mainly gentlemen, I present to you 3 different ways you can get over your loneliness. And the first one is simply just acknowledging the loneliness that you might be feeling and just enjoy it. I mean, you want to ruminate and sit in this emotion. And when I say that, essentially, I mean, get more acquainted with yourself. Now, provided you don't have any overarching bad habits, like you're constantly watching porn, you're doing copious amounts of illegal party favors, things of that nature, the likelihood of you being able to grow within that space is a lot higher than someone who would be dependent on party favors or corn in order to sustain some level of baseline dopamine that they're currently lacking. And yes, gentlemen, if you do consume a lot of corn, this is going to destroy your baseline level of dopamine, which would just mean that you'll end up being sadder and more depressed as time goes on throughout these winter months anyway. So save yourself that kind of drama. But when we talk about being in that loneliness and developing as an individual and becoming that person who's comfortable by themselves, you really have to go through those dark moments. So yeah, first those couple of weeks when you're alone or whatever the case may be, they might be a little harrowing, but moreover, as you age or as you grow in this space, you become the person you're supposed to be, which is simply just a better version of you, right? It's all a moot point and rather subjective. I can't tell you who you need to be or the person you want to become, but what I can say is those moments when you spend them alone, you'll be more glad you did than didn't, simply because you'll be able to develop as an individual. But now let's talk about going out. Okay, let's say you're okay with being alone at home, but what about when you're going out? CJ says this, shout out to Coach Greg Adams, but I also say this as well, maybe not exactly on YouTube, but but I also say this, I mean, listen, you have to be okay with going out by yourself. In other words, like, you have to be okay with taking yourself out on dates. Like, the same way you'd want to go and take a woman out on a date and show her a good time, you should be doing that with yourself as well. I mean, what is the point of spending most of your money, first of all, but more so spending most of your time indoors by yourself, and then when you're finally with someone, you figure now is the most appropriate time to start going out? That's not how life should work in this case. I think the better thing for you to do is to be willing to take yourself out. You know, go out, do something fun. It doesn't have to necessarily be with other people, but just being able to be willing to go out and treat yourself like the person you'd want to treat, I think is paramount enough. Yeah, you probably heard somebody sneezing. That's because I'm outside with a whole bunch of fucking old people right now. The joys of being young and not having a 9 to 5, but also the pains of being young and not having a 9 to 5. Everyone you know is at work and everyone else around you is pretty fucking old, but hey, it is what it is. So we've talked about being okay with being by yourself when you're alone. We talked about being okay when you're going out and things of that nature. But what about when it comes time to actually meet people? What do you do then? I don't know what the fuck's going on, y'all. I got some old lady slapping her. her thigh meat right now. This is killing me, but anyway, we're gonna keep going. So what about when you finally meet people in person, or like in a public space? When we talk about meeting people in a public space, I think at that point it's appropriate and important to remember that you don't want to immediately throw yourself at this person, right? Like, you ever been out and you meet somebody new and they all of a sudden just start telling you their like entire life story just because they're, you know, alone and want to meet somebody? Yeah, don't be that person, especially when it comes to meeting females. Like, regardless of who you meet, the last thing you want to do is instantly throw yourself into a tell-all where you're just giving everything you've got to this one person. You know what I mean? Like, where you're telling them all the personal details of your life, you're telling them all your wins and losses, your failures. Like, bro, I just met you. I don't want to hear all that shit. Play it cool. Be cool. Like, listen, meeting new people is exciting. You get to learn about them, you get to learn new things, but you don't have to give up the ghost right away. You don't have to instantly tell people your business right away. And you for sure, especially if you're meeting women, you for sure don't instantly have to fall head over heels in love with this person, which brings me to a side point, and something I really wanted to talk about just as a random mood point. Yo, why is it, women and ladies, if one of y'all are watching this, feel free to leave this in the comments below. But ladies, why is it when you have a good conversation with someone and you connect with them, you automatically assume you're in love? Like, the normal course of life is to have good conversations. That's that's the point. If you can't have good conversations with individuals just in general, there's something wrong with you. But that's besides the point. Anyway, you leave your thoughts in the comments below. So don't be a tell-all. Don't instantly tell everybody your business, and be able to gauge people. A lot of the times, the reason why we end up alone, sans friends or sans romantic partner, is simply because we are terrible at discerning the characters of individuals. And also, we're terrible at having boundaries for our own self. You know, a lot of times relationships crumble either because we don't have boundaries or we try to overstep other people's boundaries, whichever way you look at it isn't a good thing for either party, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier, when you put yourself in a position to where you are a terrible judge of character and you can't discern the people in front of you, what ends up happening is you allow people that could have nefarious intentions into your life, which obviously has adverse effects. You know, for a lot of guys, they see a pretty woman and without actually like vetting her or asking the kind of questions that will reveal someone's character, they tend to just fall head over heels in love with this woman, and a couple years later, whatever the case may be, they're upset as to why, you know, their wife doesn't love them or is using them or X, Y, and Z, whatever the case is. And that's because you are a shit judge of character, homie. You are a terrible judge of character. And if you spend more time trying to vet people and really make sure that they should be a part of your life, as opposed to wanting to just jump ship and jump on anything that moves per se, you'd probably be in a much better position with some of the relationships or lack thereof in your life. So those are just a couple things I think you should keep in mind. But gentlemen, more so, when we talk about male loneliness, or, you know, whatever challenges males face, obviously the understanding is that people aren't going to come save you, which is important, yes. But also understand that you have the power and the propensity to be able to create solutions within your own life. Like, you don't have to be the neck-bearded incel in your mom's basement dwelling on, you know, the mishaps of your former life. You don't have to be that guy. You could easily start a new path and chart a new course forward and become the person you know you're supposed to be. Become the guy you know you can become if you give yourself that opportunity. Will there be challenges? Of course. Will there be moments of doubt? Also, of course. But at some point, you have to understand that, you know what? Regardless of what happens and regardless of circumstance, I still have the power to make this life the best life possible for myself and within my own parameters. Stop looking at Instagram, comparing yourselves to, you know, fucking Chris Brown or whatever celebrity you like. Stop comparing yourselves to these guys. You're not them. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. You can be the man, just not them. But you got to be your own man to be the man, if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Leave your thoughts and comments below in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. Obviously, we got more videos on the way as well. Make sure you download the fitness app for Tara Fitness. You can get that on the Google Play Store or on the Apple App Store. And I don't know, go do something nice, man. Go live your life. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.